links in the chat. So you will have the ability to share this with your friends, your family members, and your network momentarily once we go ahead and get rocking and rolling. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Kevin Lloyd. I am the founder and CEO of ColumbusBlack.com, which is the platform that's sharing the live stream tonight, and also the co-founder of MILE, which stands for Make Your Life Entertaining. That is how you registered for tonight's event, right? So that's a social activity and entertainment platform. It is Black owned, and you can not only find things to do, places to go, and food to eat, but you can post events, promote events, sell tickets to your events, as well as capture data insights. So feel free to reach out to us at hello@mile.com. If you have an upcoming event, you want our services, you need our services, we'll be happy to help you have a successful event. With that being said, I'm super excited for tonight because we're about to have a very powerful conversation. One of the things that we've been blessed to do with ColumbusBlack.com is over the last 18 years is to create a platform for messages just like what's going to be held tonight. In the Black community, unfortunately, we don't have enough. We do have some, but we don't have enough platforms like this to have very deep dialogue around our community. And with our guest tonight, in the book that he's written, which is an amazingly powerful book, I'm excited to have him. With that being said, I'll be coming back in a little bit to share some of my personal thoughts, but I'm going to turn it over to Jasper Person. JP, you can go ahead and jump in and get us started. Thank you.
Great day, everybody. Rocking and rolling. Jasper Person here, founder of Taylor Fit, co-founder of Dewey, Diversity, Equity, Wellness, and Inclusion. And we are extremely excited about you being in the place to be. There's a lot of places you could be in, but tonight you are here with us, and we are excited with our special guests that are in this space, people from without the community who are going to be chiming in and connecting the dots. And we're thankful that you are here because we want to hear from you. We want to create a space that allows us to speak on what is heavy. And so as we jump into this moment in this time, I'm going to switch it on over to, I believe, Sister Fran to get us going and keep us rocking and rolling and flowing with the time.
Actually, at this particular point, my apologies, I'm jumping in. So Fran is not joining us, and who we have absolutely starts us up framing is Brother Q and Sister Ashley. So Brother Q, please go ahead and introduce yourself and start us off with a word.
Okay, greetings everyone. Quentin Walcott, I'm out here in New York City. I run an organization called Connect, and we're doing gender-based violence prevention work. And what kind of makes us unique in this space is that we do prevention work. And number two, that we are engaging men and boys like from the early conversations about how do we prevent violence and looking at the intersections of violence. And one of the projects I want to really programs that I want to highlight tonight, because I think is very much related to Brother Kiese Laymon's work and literature and story experience, is the Connect Men's Roundtable. It's a space that we've been actually running for about 14 some odd years now. And, you know, we based it on the conversations around Rihanna and Chris Brown when they were having that situation. There's a lot of misinformation going on, and I happened to be on a bus one day, and I heard some young people talking about the cause of the violence, really kind of looking away from Chris Brown and blaming Rihanna for the violence that happened. But that was hidden or there because I decided to create a space where if men had the opportunity to talk to Chris Brown, what would they say? What would they ask him? What were some of the questions they had, regardless of the judgment or the idea of like who did what? Like, what would you say to this young brother? And so ever since then, we've been created this space where we look at accountability, we look about men's experiences and relationships. And so it's about fatherhood and manhood, and then really looking at the notions of how we develop manhood and fatherhood and relationships with our intimate partners, and also in terms of siblings and just folks in workplaces, wherever men and women may happen to cohabitate. We have these conversations that are really centered around masculinities, gender roles, these ideas of just how we interact as people, and really creating a space where it's a thread now. It used to be like a occasional conversation around accountability, but it's a thread throughout all of our conversations over the last 14, 15 years now. And the topic we're talking about just recently is love. You know, like, what is men's relationship to love? You know, how does it show up for us? How do we shape love, and where do we get these ideas and notions from again, and what's healthy and what's unhealthy? It's been a really interesting space thinking about Kiese Laymon's work, is that, you know, we're really having these really authentic and honest conversations about what we've done, what harm we've done, what harm we've received, and what harm we've witnessed throughout our lifetimes, and where we get these ideas about how relationships work or don't work, and what we've repeated when we've got into intimate relationships, and really kind of honing in on what are the root causes of our behavior and our kind of performance, you know, in relationships and around the people around us in relationships. So it could be, you know, your friends, your family, what have you. So, and really talking about, you know, sexual violence, talking about, you know, domestic violence, talking about what's been healthy and how do we get there, right? Like, what is the relationship? And we met just Wednesday night. It's probably one of the most powerful conversations we've had in a number of years, because men were truly honest about their relationships. Some of it is about their relationships with their parents, the relationships with their fathers, or lack of relationship with their fathers, and even sometimes harm that women in their lives have done, either directly or indirectly, but looking at how decisions are made and why they're made, looking at power and control, and then also really digging deep into what is healthy. Why is that healthy? And talking about it so other men can hear similar stories, really stories that they can't even relate to because it's so beautiful, but like tapping into and talking to each other in dialogue about, how did you get there? You know, what are you doing? What are you using? Of course, it's not a one size fits all, but there's some principled things that come out in these conversations about masculinities, not just this kind of like this toxic, super hyper thing that people are really on right now, but unpacking that a little bit more and realizing that during the course of a day, we are putting a mask on, or we're performing depending on where we are, who we're with, what type of relationship is. So just really digging deep into that. And I know that's key and crucial for Key's work and in this particular book. So I just wanted to kind of just lay out, like, this is some of the conversations that men are actually having. We're not just talking about sports. We're not just talking about, you know, women in a particular type of way. We're challenging the status quo. We're challenging who we are, holding each other accountable in a non-judgmental, compassionate way, because we have all experienced pieces of harm and joy, but really kind of get to that point where getting deeper in these conversations, so that, because it's an intergenerational space too, so some of the older folks, just because they're old, don't necessarily have the answers, right? So some of the conversations with the 40, 50-year-olds sound very much like the 20 and the 30-year-olds. You know, we've been making mistakes all the way through. Got to see our partners as equal and human beings. So I'll leave it there. I appreciate all of you. Thanks.
Well, thank you for those comments. And just to that point, and talking about the importance of having these, if not intergenerational, certainly this sort of balance at this particular time. In framing this conversation, I want to ask our sister Ashley Glass to also frame this issue and talk a little bit about her work and how this conversation around healing and reconciliation fits within the context of work that she does with all these incredible people in her world and space in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again for having me. So just to be totally honest with everybody tonight, if I would have been asked to speak about this subject a couple years ago, I would not have been able to. And that's because of my experiences. So just to share a little bit about my background, I'm a single parent of 3 beautiful young ladies, but was in an abusive relationship, had a very bad experience with Black men, and was bitter and hurt and enraged, and just I had a lot of healing I had to do within myself. I kept attracting the same type of men, and I just didn't understand why. And so when I got connected to therapy and mental health services, I really truly got to dig deep down and see, you know, how different experiences I've had in my life and different, I guess you could see what I envisioned as what was a healthy relationship was not, what I envisioned as what was normal was not. And so I use that with my events in education that we do with Black Women Cultivating Change. Last year, we held both a Black men's mental health event here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we brought mental health services into the community. We had it at a very popular kind of sports bar, and we had different generations. So we had age range from 20 all the way up to 50s. And we just had Black men come and just talk about their challenges, tired of trying to be this toxic masculine man, having to, you know, not show their emotions, not being able to express their emotions or ever being able to cry or anything like that, having, you know, the stress that they deal with every day, but still having to come home with a smile on their face to their families. And so they got to really release that and talk about, you know, the just different challenges they go through. As well as we have workshops for women too, as well. So we had one, we collaborated with an organization that focuses on domestic violence and sexual assault, when we provided services to them as well. And during that event, we had women share that they had never been able to speak up and share different experiences that they had experienced, in, whether it be in their childhood or different experiences that they've had in their life. No one's ever given them an outlet to kind of share what was going on. And that's, so I say all that to say, I think in our community, we definitely need to speak up and have more conversations like this. We have grown people that have never been able to even share what they've gone through, or, you know, express the level of hurt and different things that have happened in their life. So I am truly appreciative of this conversation, truly appreciative of this book. And I think the main goal of our organization is to reduce the stigma related to mental health and wellness in the Black community, because we all know mental health affects every other aspect in our life as well too. So if we can really get down to the root and address our childhood traumas, triggers, generational trauma, I think we can really see a positive trajectory in our communities. So thank you so much.
I'm gonna thank you, sister. I'm gonna make a quick transition, because one of the things that becomes real clear the moment you get exposed to Brother Key's work is, you know, he's not just talking about the impact of his work is not just because he's talking about these topics, it's because of the quality of his art. And one of the things that I think that has been shared thus far is the reality is that these stories, whether they're told or not told, the question becomes, how important are these stories as it relates to our own sort of education and liberation? And so we're going to move now to this particular conversation where I've asked two of my mentors, the first two I'm super excited to introduce, to talk about heavy within the context of African-American literature and also K through 12 education. Because for me, and I have a lot to say about this book, to my knowledge, and this artist and this work of art is perhaps one of the greatest gifts that we have to actually, you know, share and shine a light on some of the things you already talked about. So I invited them to say a little bit about how they think about this work and its relationship to education. So I'm not going to give all the bona fides about these folks because I'll be here forever, but I will start off with Dr. Tiffany Patterson, who has been a mentor of mine and also has some relationship to the South with Brother Key. So Dr. Patterson, please unmute yourself and I'll let you go ahead and start. Tiffany, you still muted. Is she co-host?
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you go.
Okay, all right. I still feel somewhat at a disadvantage because I was pulled into this conversation last night or yesterday, and I went out and got the book and started reading it. The connection to Mississippi is I'm from a Mississippi family. Born there in my grandfather's house, landowners, but part of the Great Migration. My mother refused to live in Mississippi when my father came home from the military. They migrated to right outside of Chicago. The little that I got a chance to read did make me take a hard look at the values that were that I was brought up with. And the reality, and what Jewel didn't say is I'm a historian of the African diaspora. And I've been reading for over 40 years the histories of African Americans in this country, the Caribbean, parts of Africa, as well as the literature. I spoke to Jewel earlier today, and it immediately made me think about the violence in the family of James Baldwin that he writes about in his work. His father was so enraged by the experiences that he had had in New York City, coming from living in this country, that he dumped that on his son. I had the chance to hear Baldwin talk personally about that at a lecture I went to years ago, just 2 years before he died, and having to carry that burden. But more importantly, I want to say real quickly, because we don't have a lot, I don't want to take up a lot of time. In studying the African American history, it is a study of violence against Black people, of violence that then trickles down into the personal experiences of Black people, of violence in the family, and rage that people carry around that is not just expressed in bad health issues, but it's expressed in a myriad of ways. I haven't talked to you yet, Jewel, after reading what I did read, and it made me think about, my brother died a few years ago, and I've really been tortured by, both as a historian, but as a member of a family. Why did Jeffrey die the way he did? Why was he violent against the women in his life? Why did my mother raise 2 daughters to succeed, but lose her son? That's the personal question. The larger question is the unwillingness of leaders in this country, and we're going through it right now, to tell the truth about the experiences of Black people. It permeates our literary work. It permeates our music. It permeates our day-to-day experiences in one form or another. I'm acquainted with that as a scholar, but I'm also acquainted with that as a person, that we constantly are reframing our understanding of our own lives and trying to understand the violence that is perpetrated not only from those from the outside, but within the community. And let me use just one example. 5 men beat a Black young man to death just a week or 2 ago. 5 police officers did what we normally think of what white police and white violence have been leveled against us. And it's a violence that we have to begin to come to grips with. I teach slavery. I was a part of the AP plan. I'm going to, my colleague and I will be going to Washington over this. We approved to have to teach African-American studies and African-American history. Our courses at Vanderbilt, where I teach, was our introductory course. And yet we keep running away from it, away from the violence that is generational, the violence aboard the slave ship. There's a novel called Book of Night Women that I've taught, and it's about the violence against women that took place on the plantation, not just at the hand of white owners, but at the hands of Black men as well as at the hands of Black women. So I'm not gonna belabor this because I'll be going into my class, but Jewel just pulled me in and I haven't had but a day to think about this. But the key is the unwillingness of the society at large, the politicians, other Black people. There's a book I read recently where a Black man wrote and talked about how Black people have overcome. This is a Black person who's an immigrant. We're doing well. We're not doing well. Our kids are not doing well. And they haven't been for a very long time. The violence that gets leveled at Black women, but let's be real serious, the violence in the hands of Black women as well. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there. That sort of introduces my entree into this discussion. I'm brand new to it. I think you can tell me a lot more than I can tell you at this moment. I'll stop there.
Thank you, sister. At this particular time, I'm going to invite Principal Ty, who's going to share a little word about the work, but particularly through the lens of K through 12 education. Principal Ty.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to first start off by saying, Brother Kiese Laymon, you ain't heavy, you're my brother. And that goes to everyone else who's on this call as well. I had the recent pleasure, my name is Ty Cornute. I serve as the proud principal of Columbus City Preparatory School for Boys. We are seated right here in Columbus, Ohio, 6 through 8 middle school. And recently I had the pleasure to sit on a panel to discuss a film, a documentary called Black Boys, executive produced by a colleague when I was at Ohio State, Malcolm Jenkins. And there's a key inside the film, and it talks about mirrors versus windows. And far too often for white children in K-12, they get mirrors through literature, through art, through their K-12 experience. And Black and brown children, they look through windows. These windows are they're a barrier to an experience, to a life that is outside of the realm of their reality, and so to speak. And so I want to first off salute you, Key, to just talk about the vulnerability that you share in your words in this story, and how powerful it is to give an opportunity for these young boys to see themselves reflected through literature, and in a real way. Even getting on this call, I mean, that you just carry yourself with this super down to earth demeanor, and I love that. You're very touchable to the people. So I framed that to ask just two questions, and two questions only. Honestly, I would hope that you can speak to. The first is, in terms of your vulnerability, I would like for you to speak to the role and the importance of therapy. And I know you don't speak to it directly in the book, but to me, it's outlined in the relationship that you have with your grandmother, right? Like, you're able to talk to her about any and everything in this real way. And for me, it reminds me of the opportunity that I had to speak to my grandmother, right? And she was able to share sage wisdom over time. So I would like for you to speak to the importance of therapy, in the lives of Black boys and men, and just kind of normalizing what that means and what that looks like. And the second thing is I have this theory about intergenerational relationships amongst men, right? And to put it in layman's terms, I just call them big homies. I had big homies, my older cousins and uncles, who gave me the game, who talked to me and kind of helped steer me along the way. And you kind of speak to that at different stages, people that you were able to talk to, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but who really gave you the game in certain ways. He gave you the game and tried to speak truth into your life. And I think oftentimes that there's a lack of that, which leads to the demise of what our young people are experiencing today. They don't have the real guidance right now. And so those would be the two things that I would ask for you to speak to. One, just the importance of therapy, and then two, what the importance of intergenerational conversations and relationships with and amongst Black men look like in the lives of especially young Black boys. Thank you.
Am I talking right now, Jewel? Yes. Okay. Um, yeah.
All,
Thank y'all.
all you.
All right. Thank y'all so much for making space for me. Before other people got on, I was talking about the willful and courageous leadership that I felt with the primary group of people who made this possible. And I don't just mean the generosity in reading my book. I mean the willfulness to take Black interiority serious, particularly when you are in a position of power, because we know that most um, institutions do not want our leaders to take Black interiority, which is Black joy, Black love, Black pain, Black violence seriously. So I just want to say thank y'all. I also want to thank Joe Woods for reaching out to me a few months ago, making the Oberlin connection. Like a lot of people, Oberlin, the space, and really the Black students in that space are part of the reason that I'm here today talking to y'all, part of the reason that I was able to work on my craft enough to eventually have the confidence to feel that I could put a book out like this out in the world. And I like to call people's names. I mean, specifically, that was Calvin Harrington and Adrian Lash Jones. You know, they gave me something that I had a little bit of from Mississippi when I came to Oberlin, but they kind of let me go and be like, you got to use that, bro. You got to go. I want to answer those questions directly and say I can answer the second one and say one of the hardest parts for me about writing a book was when I come to grips with like who gave me that game in terms of older Black men or parental figures. I got game on Marxism, I got game on Pan-Africanism, I got game on Black nationalism, and it was incredible game. It was the right game, but it came from the mouth of a man who was beating my mama. So I did not know how to process that game. And at times when this man was making the most sense, I found myself gravitating more to him and his behavior. As I kind of try to lay out in that book, the first question that was asked about therapy, I'm very clear with people who want to talk to me about this book. And like, I don't think the writing of a book should be a stand-in for therapy. I don't think a conversation with a grandmother should be a stand-in for therapy, but I do think the writing of a book and a conversation with grandmother do mean something. They can be pathways to a kind of healthful and helpful practice of communal and self-love. But I do not think that those things are therapy, and neither do I think that therapy is great Black interiority centered therapy. Jewel and I have had honest conversations about this. Like one of the things I regret most in writing this book was that I didn't take my ass to therapy. I thought that my responsibility was to carry the quote unquote weight of this the people have called it like various forms of violence every day for 6 years. And one of the reasons I was able to come out of that on the other side with something that some people in this room have said that they feel love and joy, or at least influenced by, was because again, paradoxically, like I wrote this book to you, to y'all, to parts of you. It's directly addressed to you. Like I'm writing to our Black selves, our Black insides, and I am directly writing to my mother. And I directly wrote to my mother, one, because she's the person who loved me first, loved me whole, made me feel like the most special. She was also the person who I think I lied to, manipulated the most before I was 18 years old. She's the person that I think lied to and manipulated me the most. And most importantly, she's the person who taught me to read and write and revise. And those gifts, I realized when I was about 38, I'd written 2 other books. I was like, you got to start placing these gifts in the service of your people, but also in the actual service of the relationship that means the most to you. And that relationship was a relationship with my mother, and it was a relationship that was filled with humiliation and bankrupt at that point. I think we'd stop loving each other. She would say that's not true. So I wrote a book directly to her, my first teacher, about the ways that we loved each other, about the ways we failed, and about how the ways that love and that failure were all influenced indirectly or directly by our culture, by our state, by our town, by our nation. And thankfully some of y'all read that book. So I just want to say thank y'all for making space for me. I'm a very direct and open person when it comes to talking about art and talking about relationships. But I will just say, like, when you put a book like this out in the world, your hope is that Black folk take it seriously, because if they take it seriously, that means that they are taking their inside seriously. And if you take our inside seriously, you're taking our past seriously. And I also think that if you take our prayers seriously, you're taking our imagination, our ideals and ideas about utopia seriously too. So I just want to say thank y'all from the bottom of my heart for making and taking this book seriously. And I hope that I hope that, you know, I want to engage with some more questions. But the first thing I just want to say is, like, thank you so much for taking this book into classrooms of young people. You write a book like this, that's your hope, but there's no way you know that that could ever happen. So I just want to say thank y'all for making space, and I hope we can get into some stuff tonight that might unnerve us, but also tie us together. Because at the end of the day, that book is about us being heavier. That's the only chance we got. If we tie our interiorities to one another and organize and swing back, but we got to do it healthily. We can't have these relationships where we ask more of our relationships with white people than we ask more of our relationships with ourselves. I think we have to have some integrity in our relationships with ourselves and each other, with the goal being a kind of radical organizing and communal kind of love. So thank y'all for making space for me, and I hope that we can do some work tonight.
Thank you for those comments, brother. And so with that being said, one of the easiest things that I've said to people is that no matter how much I hype the book far exceeds any hype that I have. And so it has been my greatest opportunity to really get folks who are not familiar with the work to read it. And so I'm super excited right now to really kind of open this up to this next section or fireside chat, which is to just a group of brothers that were kind enough to read the book. I think at my last count, I had 55 people, not just brothers, but a whole bunch of sisters too. But I've asked at least 5 or 6 of them to kind of, in this next section, just to pour into you about their reactions to the book and to ask some questions about the book. So I'm going to just mention the names, and then y'all brothers jump in when and where you want to. So we got Jasper, we got Craig. Well, I'll mention the last name: Jasper Pearson, Craig Comedy, Kevin Lloyd, Larry Seward. We're going to ask Brother Ty to jump back in as well. So please feel free to jump in and share with Brother Kai.
I'll jump.
All right.
I'll
So
jump.
since
I'll go ahead. Okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead, JP. All right.
All right.
All right. So look, I'll go ahead and run with it. I got it. Right. So that's what happens, right? When everybody takes over at the same time. So listen, I'll just start here. First of all, I want to do what Key, he gave me the approval to call him Key, did earlier. I want to give Jewel his flowers first, right? So Jewel, I want to commend you for your leadership. I want to commend you for everything that's happening this week, right? We got Black Girl Dad Week. We got the Black Father-Daughter Dance tomorrow. You are wrapping up this Friday with this powerful, much deserved and needed conversation. And I want to thank you for all the work you're doing. Then I want to pass along some more flowers to Key himself. Creative genius, right, is what I'm gonna call you, right? And the reason why is the way you wove in all the components of your life into this book. Like, this is not normal, right? Like, this is like your everyday person can't do what you did. And for those that have not read the book yet, I'm going to invite you to read heavy, because it is so heavy, literally, right? Like, the book is so powerful. And I think that there's something we all can take from, that's the part that like the creativity of, there's not one person, I don't believe, especially in the Black community, that could read that book and not say that was me at this point in my life, right? Like, you wove it in, and it touches every aspect of your life, but it touches so many of our lives. And the biggest thing for me is that it was mentioned earlier that unfortunately, so many times we don't get to vent and share our experiences. We've held all of this in, right? And that's why we're dealing with the trauma internally, because of the fact that we haven't let it out, which is the reason why we have the need for support and help and assistance these days, because we've held it in so long. And I feel like your book, and I'm gonna turn it over so others can speak, but I feel like your book was the first step for many of us to realize that we need that help and that support due to something that happened to us during our childhood. The last part is it resonates because we realize that our youth are dealing with these things right now. And you have to try to figure out, how do we help them? Because we know this is happening to them. So I just have to commend you and say thank you for letting this out and impacting the world in a way that is going to be. And now it's up to us to figure out how we can transform our lives, but the lives of our children as well. So thank you.
Any question, though? I'll put it out there because, we'll also ask your brothers. Any question that you had, Kev, though, for Keith?
I don't have a question yet, besides how how did you formulate how you were going to actually write the book to even make it so seamless? I know you told your story, but it's so seamless. It's not, I haven't read a book that's written like that before.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I wish I could just say thank you. I'm a Mississippi, like when I say Mississippi boy, like that's a compliment. You know what I mean? When I say Mississippi boy, that's not a pejorative. And I'm a Mississippi boy, which means we have impeccable home training. We like to fight a little too much, but our home training is kind of off the chart. And we're very thankful people. And I'm so thankful, fam. And so, I mean, for me, y'all, like I could get into the art like too much, so I won't get into it too much. But I'll just say, you know, like to write and to make the things that we make. And I mean, I learned how to make things from my grandmama. You can't just go up in that kitchen and be like, what I want is gonna happen. You know, you gotta layer that shit. Like I was always like, damn, how could grandmama cook like 8 different things and have them all be hot at the same time? And all we had was like two eyes. You know what I'm saying? Like that means like you that takes a kind of preparation, and it takes a kind of revision. You have to. I don't know about Columbus people. I was about to cuss, but you have to f up a lot to do what my grandmama did with food. You have to f up a lot to do what she did with her garden, and I didn't really understand that till later in my life that was a kind of revision. And when I got to the point where I could write this book again, I had to write 2 books to get myself to the point where I could write this book. I just thought about the textures of our lives, and I wanted to kind of weave them in as much, you know, tightly as possible without the shit seeming kind of, you know, because sometimes you can, you know, you read a book, you can tell when some threads don't fit. But to do it, you kind of got to write 6 different books, you know what I mean? And then you got to put them together. And again, like I'm inspired by my granny. You know what I mean? Like my granny is the most incredible artist in my life, and I just know, you know, we present differently. Like my grandma would be mad as hell if she saw me on here with this hoodie and all that shit. But like part of becoming is you got to step away from the people who made you as well, you know, and step to them. And then step into my people and my granny. When it comes to this book shit, like I just want to present the best books in the world because I feel like we come from the greatest people in the world, and I feel like I was kind of like, I feel like we all chosen to do something, and like we gotta, you know, the question is like systemically, do we do the things that give our kids enough ability and will to try to like maximize that thing in the really with love of Black folk at the heart of what we do. And you know, my mama taught me, and my grandmama like showed me how to make art, and then it was just like, you know, you got to put them books out there. Like I'm not the kind of person who's gonna write like 10 books. Like I'm gonna write probably like 6 books, and hopefully they're gonna be tight and innovative, you know. But I just want to say that's my grandmama right there. Even though my grandmama would, you know, she don't like, you know, I cuss in my book, she don't like that, but when she reads the first 3-4 paragraphs of my work, I can see her, you know, she mad, but she can also be like, you know, that's my grandbaby. And so, you know, a lot of it's just stunting, bro. Like y'all asked me to come on here, like some of it, like this is not, it's heavy, but it's also, we come from people who stunt. And when I get in that literature shit, like I'm trying to rep and I'm trying to stunt. And that's part of how I make it through the day, because I'm trying to stunt my way through some things that could damn near killed me and actually killed a lot of us. So I don't know how you make it through that if you don't stunt and hold on to the shiniest folk in your life. So that's what I tried to do.
Can I, you know, I'm a note, Brother Jasper will jump in, but just in terms of that piece, because you know, you started off, Kev, talking about giving your flowers, and Brother Key, you know, the level of art, you know, I don't want people to sort of miss out on that. So just 2 things. One, correct me if I'm wrong, if I did not hear you in an interview say that you wrote this book in the past, present, and future in 3 different sort of versions. Yeah. And then secondly, just in terms of your own process, that you do write 2 hours a night and revise 2 hours in the morning or something along those lines. So the level of work.
Well, not anymore. Can I just say like that was unhealthy. That's what, like, talking to you has helped me understand that like, I think sometimes I come from people who fetishize work. And so sometimes I would be honest about my writing practice, and people be like, some people be like, yeah, but other people be like, brother, you a 48-year-old man, my nigga, like you probably need to do something else at night other than write 2 hours and wake up in the morning and write. So I'm saying I did do that to write this book. But one of the ways that I've learned to love myself is to step away from practices that felt like they were useful. And now I do a little something more healing with myself. And for an hour, I write an hour in the morning, I write an hour at night. And that taking the hour away from my practice has meant the world to my inside. So I just want to say that. Yeah.
Man,
I'll go after Jasper.
Okay, yeah, good. I'm just super, super excited, bro. I think, like I said, when Jewel first started, obviously sharing the book, and we started to dig in, it was like literally like I couldn't step away from it. And I think, as Kev said, I mean, it's obviously a work of art. I think about, like a portrait that has no end, almost, right? Like, so you continue to, like, there's no frame to this, right? It continues to just go. Like, you keep flipping it over, and then there's more, and then you flip it again, and there's more. And so I just want to, first of all, as Kev said, give you your flowers and let you know that this work that you're doing is transformational, to us as specifically Black men, but just as people, period, to be able to sit in, you telling and sharing your story, but then us to be a part of it, right, through that process. As he said, like, nobody can pretty much say that that wasn't a part of me, or I didn't live that, or I wasn't a part of, or I didn't experience that from someone else. And so I just think you being true to yourself, and true to who it is that, right, God has called you to be, has created an amazing thing, right? So I just wanted to say that first of all. My two questions, for you are around, speaking to, the type of discipline, and I give homage to my 97-year-old grandmother, within this space too, and kind of speaking to, the fact that there's a discipline, a different type of discipline that your grandmother gives you from a discipline that your mother gives to you, right? And wanting you to kind of expand on that a little bit. As I was reading through and just thinking about myself in that same exact space, how sometimes, due to the era, right, and the experiences, whether it's grandmother or mother, right, those different types of disciplines that exist, but what they give to us to be able to live through whatever it is that we have to live through. And so I immediately thought grandmother discipline, self-mastery, right, where mother discipline, slave to master, right? Those are kind of the two things that I framed as I listened to, like, those different disciplines that exist. So if you could speak on that, that's the first one. And then the second one, that I'm asking you to speak to, and this is specific to, is two-part. One being, you speaking on, like, the dislike of the structure of the church, right? And so this goes to, for those of us who understand the foundation of those two elements of family and faith, right? And so this dislike of the structure of the church, you talk about the difference between, like, the traditional church that experience, and then the church, once again, with grandmother, right, in the home, and the church becoming a part of who you are and your experience, to be able to tap into a higher being of life and structure within that space. And so if you could speak on those two things that within there, then I got 1,000 questions, but those are the only two.
That's a lot. I'm thankful for that. And again, I could go off on that, but I'm gonna try to be very brief and say, my grandmother's Christianity and my grandmother's practice of Christianity, is how we got over. But my grandmother's practice of Christianity is so far fucking removed from what white people call Christianity as I can describe. But all that said, we often invest in some patriarchal bullshit, and what I'm encouraging young people to do, and older people who have access to themselves and younger people, is to we have to be tender enough with our insides to actually attempt to remember and express what we actually felt. And my experience at church, from as early as I can remember, was that I loved the sound of the fans. People's wrists would be, I'm from Mississippi, people doing the fans. I love my grandmama, and my grandmama couldn't sing. That's one thing she couldn't do, but she had 3 daughters who were incredible. They had their own group. So, my mama and my auntie and my other auntie, like, their voices were our church. My grandmother was the smartest person I knew. My mother was the second smartest person I knew. My aunt was the most soulful person I knew. And all three of them couldn't speak in that church unless they wanted to talk about the announcements. As a young person, I knew something was weird about it. And well, not weird, I thought something was terrible about that. And it wasn't terrible simply because, well, it was terrible because they were Black women who could not speak in that pulpit. And my auntie wanted to be a preacher. But what's terrible about it was that the preachers, at least in our church, were so mediocre. You know, they had all the but no substance in between all that shit. No substance whatsoever. And so I'm talking about as a young person, I'm talking about 7, 8, 9. I'm up in there with my clip-on tie. I'm sweaty. I don't feel good, except when I hear the sound. And when else? When the choir at my church would make people catch the Holy Ghost. The choir. So those are the times that I felt most not bored at church, but also most connected to something that was like remotely radical in that space. And the part that made that like most harmful was that my grandmother and her sisters had something called Home Mission. My grandmother and her sisters were the ushers at the church. These women would meet at a different woman's house every week. The person whose house they met at would make the food, and they would testify. And they would testify, you know, based sort of on what they saw in the text, but they would also testify about what happened in the week. And grandma would sometimes let me be in there, or if it was on the porch, grandma would let me be out there. But when it got real, quote unquote heavy, granny would be like, baby, you got to go in the other room. We lived in a two bedroom, 500 square foot, you know, pink shotgun house. Shit, I go in the other room, put my ear to the hole, and I hear people just wailing, you know? And I just remember wondering why we couldn't get that in that space. But when I got older, I didn't care as much about why we couldn't as much as I cared about the fact that I did get. You know, and then I started to talk to other people about, you know, like I think a lot of the ways like the church is sort of like, you know, uncritically patriarchal. I'm talking about, I come from a Southern Missionary Baptist church. Your first question about my grandmother's discipline versus my mother's discipline, I mean, that's a tough question for me to answer, fam, because it's because I don't like the answer. You know, like, I mean, I will say my mother was 19 years old and she was a sophomore at Jackson State when she had me. When I was 19 years old, I mean, I was getting kicked out of school, working at a like fake ass Chuck E. Cheese. I cannot imagine what having a child at that age would do. My mother had me. She went to school with me, Jackson State. She finished a year early. She went directly to graduate school. Took me there for a year or so. I went to stay with my grandmother while she finished, and we moved back to Jackson. I'm saying that to say, my mother, you know, I think you know when you're looking in the face of someone who wants to hurt you. I think you know. I think you know. I think you know when you're looking in the face of someone who wants to hurt you. And I think you know when you're looking in the face of someone who wants to help you. My grandmother never, ever in my life tried to hurt me. My grandmother never tried to hurt me. She never tried to hurt me, you know? And for the longest time, I sort of fetishized my grandmother. I was like, oh, she never tried to hurt anyone. And then in writing this book and do these interviews, and you find out that the same relationship that I had with my mother, which was a very physically, I'm gonna use the word abusive because she uses it, you know, physically abusive relationship. You know, my grandmother had a similar relationship with her first child, who's my Uncle Jimmy. So I just think it's important when we, for me at least, because I can have a tendency sometimes to see my grandmother as this like infallible human. And I think it's so much more vital that we see the grown people in our lives as complex, textured human beings who had many lives before we came into contact with them. And so my grandmama never tried to hurt me, but I know that's not true about her relationship with her other children. And I know that's not true about her relation. I know that she was hurt by many other people in her lives, but I also think my grandmother like manifested a kind of womanism that we haven't seen written about or talked about much at all. Which was that, you know, like people around my community know and knew that if you stepped to her wrong, you were going to be shot. And that was not hyperbole, that was fact. And that, you know, as much as I'm, you know, critical of militarism and guns, like that helped keep me sort of safe in that community where we grew up, because people knew that my granny didn't play. Similarly, I just want to say in terms of discipline, in Jackson, my mama wasn't gonna shoot you, but my mama had a reputation in my city that like she don't play as a teacher. My name, if I could show people I was my mama's child, I think sometimes there were definitely times when people like, gave me a kind of a pass that they didn't give other children my age. So those are really tough questions. I'm sorry for talking so much, but that's what I got on those.
Appreciate you. Craig?
Yes, sir. Brother Kiese, I experienced your book as an audio book. So it was you talking to me. And it was so powerful because, I felt like this brother sitting right across in the room from me, and he was sharing that this is my life. This is what happened to me. You didn't, give us necessarily a full political analysis or a value judgment. Like, this is where you should land after hearing my experience. This is what you should think about it. But you displayed it out there and just said, you consume it. You do with it, you take from it what you will. At least that's how I experienced it. And I spent a lot of time hitting that pause button and going back to my own life, going back to my friends' life, people in my community, my family, especially around the issues of growing up, a young Black boy, young Black girls, dealing with sexuality where it wasn't talked about in the home at all. Most of, at least in my sphere, the experiences were dealt with and taught through your peers. And, growing up in environments where, my high school, 1 out of every 4 people graduated. So, you saw yourself, putting a lot of importance on getting high, hanging out, doing a lot of things that have anything to do with really furthering your life or becoming somebody. So you spent a lot of time on, especially the issue of sexuality without any real socialization of it. And how you displayed it out there really allowed me to not only reflect about my own life and my own experiences, but really how our society as a whole, and especially in our communities, allow one of the most important things, one of the most pivotal and intimate things to happen to us and that we're going to experience all throughout our life, to be socialized by our peers and not have any formal system, any community-based system. Even for a lot of us, since 1985, I've done youth programming, drug prevention, violence prevention, reentry services, family-based services, but really no, formalized way to help young people deal and grapple with our sexuality. And especially when you grow up in oppressive environments, it's probably one of the most dangerous things that we could allow happen. And even though I feel like I've done a lot of great things in the community for young people, I really feel remiss that, not just me, but a lot of us through our programming won't go deep enough to deal with those issues that really form a lot of who we're going to be as adults. So I really think, for me, your book was just so great at really displaying parts of our lives that a lot of us just don't want to discuss and deal with. And my question was already asked earlier, so I do have another one. You shared with us your journey in certain parts of your life. Do you feel like you've gotten to a place now where you have come to terms and you have kind of stopped your journey in these areas? Or do you feel like you're going to continue to, deal with some of the areas of your life that you shared with us in the book?
Oh yeah, I thank you for that deeply, Craig. Like that. I just want to say on this, and when we talk about sexualities, and this is also, I want to nod to Quentin who talked about masculinities earlier. I do think it's important for us to, Baldwin talks about you have to kind of do your first works over. And the thing about a lot of us is that sexually there were a lot of works done to our bodies, and our bodies did work that we weren't sure about. And even as grown people, a lot of us have no place to talk about that work. Think about that. Like I think we need to talk about our young people, but we also need to talk about what it means to have never talked honestly about what one felt when touched by anyone before the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. And one of the things I wanted to say in that book was, I was a big boy my entire life, and partially I think because of the way I was raised by my mother, my grandmother, and different people. I was afraid to hurt people. Like I was, I was that person who played sports, played football, basketball my entire high school career, played in college. But I didn't, you couldn't get me to play like hard unless you like hurt me or disrespect me, because I was like a, big boy. I was just taught like, you got to be kind of like gentle, Key. Like, that's one of the things I think my mother taught me. that I really, really appreciated. But tied into that was, I think, this belief that I was ugly. And so, and unattractive because I was bigger than most of the boys and sweatier and shit. So like when anybody showed that they liked me, like I couldn't understand it. So it was important for me to talk about in that book, you know, when we're 8, 9, 10 years old, and we used to play this game called Hide and Go Get It, and you know we would play in the closets, and you know, I would never be the person who would go get the person. I always be the person to go run. But I needed to talk about how when I would run and go and be in a closet or a hallway or something, like I didn't care who. It was dark. You don't care who's touching you, right? Like you. I mean, I wanted to be touched tenderly, and saying that in that book, like it didn't just open me up to so many blah 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 blah. But as a writer, I think it created a different like shade of memory. And I just want to say, as much as we need to talk to our young people for our young people's sake about this, we need to also talk to each other. Of course, therapy is central, but I also think we need to will ourselves to wrap words around some of what we experienced, and not just the violent, and not just the positively sensual, but all of that shit in between. And so I'll just say, like, that's what I was trying to do. That's what I was trying to do. And is that, yeah, does that answer the question at all, brother? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry, do you want to go? Because I appreciate it. I want to get to the question and answers. Larry?
Yeah, and yeah, no, I don't want to go. I told you that. Being able to speak to my experience in the book, which Jewel has asked me to do. Growing up, I didn't read. I was in special classes. I was seen as gifted and all of that. I hated to read. I hated to write. I'm the old guy. You know, these guys talk about old people being 50, and they're the ones with the knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what's that do for those who are 70, right? Do I have anything to say? Jewel said, man, this guy is brilliant. I mean, he gave me awards that you got. He talked about all those things. And I said, Jewel, the only reason you're impressed because you're a brilliant guy. I'm not. I don't know who he is. And he named some authors. And I told him I hadn't read none of it. And so I continue to say, and people keep saying, didn't you read this author? Didn't you read the most brilliant da-da-da? This guy is, he said, this guy is good as so-and-so. And I go, I don't know so-and-so either. Here's what I know. When I got through reading that book, I'm clear that I'm not going to call you Key because I didn't get that permission, number one. Mr. Laymon is what I call you, but I know I can say I love you because what I read helped me say that to you. And has nothing to do with sexuality. It has nothing. I love you. And I'm telling people they should read this book. If you want to understand this love, read his book. But I would also ask you, because I pick up things, because I read the book and I kept saying, when is this guy going to realize, and I apologize, sir, when is he going to realize he crazy? Somebody that wants to go down to body fat and get that skinny, I just don't get it. You crazy. But I'm an athlete, so I know what you were thinking, but I stopped that. And so when you just said about you didn't go to therapy, I'm not, have you done that? And why didn't you? Why didn't your mother, who is brilliant, tell you to go get therapy? Because you were, man, that getting up and running like that getting down, talking about body fat, in my mind, I'm reading the book, I'm saying, that dude's crazy. I don't know how, and I don't mean to say that to you that way, except that I can't wait to see this guy and see, is he back to whatever pounds he was? Because he finally figured out something wrong there. I'll stop.
Yeah, I mean, I think we crazy. I mean, you know, I think we manifest that crazy in different ways. And I manifested that crazy at one point in my life in trying to get myself as small as I could be and losing 170 pounds and having 2-4% body fat and trying to run ultra marathons. And at some point my body was like, you can stay crazy, but we finna quit.
Yes.
Right. And the body said, we quitting. And my mind was like, nah, we not quitting. And I dragged that motherfucker out there and I broke it some more and I broke it some more. And then it got to the point where, often when we break our bodies, we often are breaking relationships tied to our bodies as well. And I was just breaking a lot of relationships. In terms of therapy, I will say, my mama actually did send me to therapy as a young person, but that's why I want to I just think, talking to Jewel has also helped me understand the distinction between going to therapy and having actual good, effective, loving, caring Black therapy. You know what I'm saying? My mama put me in therapy as a young person. That shit was not it wasn't good. It wasn't effective. It wasn't done by somebody who was good at what they do. When I got kicked out of college for taking a library book out of the library that I went to, and I really kicked out of college for writing. I was a writer and I wrote a lot of things that the white president and the white fraternities didn't like. And then I took a library book out of the library, Red Badge of Courage, and without checking it out, and brought that shit back the next day. And they got me on tape supposedly for stealing the book. They kicked me out of school, but the most terrorizing thing they did was say you can come back in 2 years if you go to a psychiatrist of our choosing. And they didn't want me to go to a psychiatrist of our choosing because of depression or bipolar. They wanted me to go because they literally said that I had a problem with white people. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm saying all that to say that, like, a lot of people in our communities and everywhere else, like, we all have reasons and experiences with therapy that have been, some of us that have been pretty horrifying. And what I did is I let those horrifying experiences stop me from going when I needed to, stop me from finding a healthy relationship with a therapist when I most needed it. Since that book has been out, I have tried to, I was gonna say rectify. That's not even the. I mean, I've sought helpful, radical, loving therapy since the book has been out. And one of the reasons I did it because I wasn't ready for that shit to be out like that. I wasn't. You put a book out. Again, you're grateful if anybody 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 100,000 people. Quarter million people read it, 500,000 people read it. People trying to turn it into movies and shit, and like. That's still my insides. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my art, but that's still my insides. And that's still me and my mama's relationship. And I wasn't ready for all these people having something to say about it. And quite honestly, I love Jewel to death. And one of the textures of our relationship now is that, like, when Jewel is equipped to talk to people like me, and I was not equipped when we first talked for Jewel to talk to people like me, like I was a patient. I was like, bro, we gonna be friends before we do anything else. And then part of that is me trying to protect myself. So I'm saying all that to say, I need quote unquote therapy more now than I've ever needed it. And unlike before I wrote the book, I've been seeking helpful, loving therapy. But to the question of, like, I'm crazy, a statement, hell yeah, I was crazy. But I don't know how motherfucker cannot be crazy in this world. Like, and I think we manifest that thing in a lot of different ways. You know what I mean? A lot of different ways. But in one manifestation of it for me was like trying to shrink myself down to nothing and disappear because my weight was a thing I felt like I could control. That number, it wasn't even about what I saw because I couldn't see. I saw the same person in the mirror no matter what. But the weight, I just wanted to get it low as possible, bro. But and that is crazy. But I do think that that's a crazy that we should hold, even though it happens to us individually. Like, you know what I mean? So I appreciate the honesty too. I like honest shit. So thank you for that, bro. Like, thank you.
He'll say that's because he's an old cat and he gets to talk freely, but thank you so much. So we're running out of time, and I actually just want to open it up, and I know our panelists have a lot of stuff to contribute, but I'm going to actually kind of combine it a little bit now. And just to let you know, so the quality and the depth and breadth of this conversation is in no way reflected in the numbers. We actually had a change in time, but the reality is an entire world needs to be and will be exposed to this brilliance in this conversation. So I'm so thankful for the folks that are here tonight. And so with your permission, panelists, and Kevin, you can give me some direction. I just want to let the panelists also, have some opportunity. And then, to on the back end, because I also want to let brilliant sister Chelsea come in as well. So any direction, Brother Kev, you'd give on how we can allow some community questions?
What we can do is, if you have a question, right, here's the rules. You can raise your hand. Right, so down at the bottom of your screen, there's a reaction button or icon. If you tap the raise hand option, you can raise your hand. We will limit this. I'm going to ask you to keep your question down to 30 seconds. And then the response, we're going to try to get within 1 to 2 minutes so we can actually get a few of those questions answered if you have them, and keep it moving so we can wrap up strong. So if you have a question, please go ahead and raise your hand at this time, and we will allow a special guest to answer that question. If you don't have a question, we're going to go ahead and defer to the panel for them to ask any additional questions that they may have at this point in time. So go ahead and raise your hand. In the meantime, if any of the panelists have a question, because I don't see any hands raised yet. Okay, so Sonia is raising your hand. Hold on one second. So, and by the way, so use that, if you can, use the icons here. But what I want to do, Sonia, I'm going to unmute you and you will have the opportunity to ask your question. Let's see right here. Okay, here we go. You should be able to unmute at this time.
Oh, hi. Sonia is sharing her platform with me. My name is actually Tammy. I have a son who suffers from a mental health disorder. And I feel like there is not a lot of support and things being research and stuff like that being poured into it, which is crazy for me because it's happening to white people, it's happening to people all across the board. And I don't understand why it's so underserved. So I'm wondering, what can I do to bring it more to the forefront? The police were at my house today, and I just want to figure out, and how can I connect him with Black men?
Thank you, son.
Thank you for that, but I think we got some people on the panel that can answer that directly.
Sonia, I want to just thank you for the question, and I would be willing to talk offline. I think that's a really important question. I'm wondering, just with the limited time that we have, if there's a way to sort of invite the questions so that Brother Laymon can actually, speak to it. So with your permission, trust me, that's the thing that I think about, sleep about, I'm committed to. Everybody in this space knows, and I'm trying to hide in the background, but I'd love to be able to discuss that with you offline if everyone is comfortable with that, because I do think that is a very specific type of question, and Brother Key is kind enough to kind of defer in that regard. Is that okay? All right. Any other sort of question from the community? And I know Tiffany wanted.
Real quick, while the community is waiting,
yeah.
I don't mind asking this question. I'll keep it very brief. Brother Laymon, if you could speak to, you talked about being kind to your insides. If you could speak to the role of addiction and then the role and journey of healing, that would be, I think, very, very important, just for our community in general.
And then we'll go to a question from Wanda and then on to Chelsea after that.
Yeah, can y'all hear me? Yeah,
we can.
Okay, so yeah, thanks. Like that question is it's the question, and it like in the writing of that book and interviewing different people in my life to write that book, it's astounding the lengths that we all go to not use that word. And now I think it's also astounding the lengths that some of us will go to use that word, and some people I know use that word in order to not take responsibility for the action. I'm just gonna be honest. But what I'm trying to do is kind of trying to tread in that murky space where like addiction is a part of our familial lineage. Like an addiction is definitely a part of my personal history. And sort of like walking to the source of that. What I also am trying to do is not use the deployment of that addiction to let me off the hook. And I think but I think that's a very thin line to walk. Do you see what I'm saying? I think it's a very thin line to be like, yes, like I am an addict, but then not let that addiction also like enable you to do fuck shit because you're an addict. Do you know what I mean? So I will say that like what I want to, there are people in this room who can speak to addiction more, but what I'm trying to do as an artist is talk about the very thin line between like healing and addiction, and how I don't know if they're ever clear. I don't know that they're clear. I think they stay thin as can be, but I think unless we perpetually walk with a practice of intentional health and love, I think that shit swallows you whole, whether you know it or not. And so that's why I just try to do what I can to not let it swallow me whole. it's a daily journey. Absolutely.
All right, we're gonna move over to Wanda, and you should be able to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Good. I'm sorry, I have a cold. I missed the first part of the discussion. I apologize for that, but from what I have heard, I just want to say that this was excellent. And here's my question. As a mother and a grandmother, and someone who feels so strongly about what's happening to our Black men, our sons, our husbands, my nephews, cousins, I am asking the question, what can we as women do to help more to support you? Men can tell us this. You guys can tell us this. I need to know, what more can we do? How can we better support you as Black women? That's my question. How can we better support you?
I think there's so many ways, but one way is that you can be honest with us about the ways you need support, right? I think I think the relationship can't be unilateral, right? Like in my experience, I was supported by, you know, a Black woman and my grandmother who is responsible for my being here, and my grandmother never burdened me with like what I could do to help her and make her life easier and better, or make the journey like less rocky. So I'm saying that, like, you know, thank you for asking what we can do, what y'all can do, but I hope that there's a level of care for self in that too, which is like, here's what y'all can do. Because sometimes I'll be honest with you, like sometimes in my life, in my experience, when people have told me what they need from me, like it has enabled me to step up. Now, I'm not trying to say that responsibility should lay on Black women, because I think Black women have done, I mean, especially Black women, if we're talking about, like, you know, in relationships with Black men, same age and whatnot. But I don't know. I don't feel comfortable like asking Black women to take on any more of what we do. But I do think that we both need to hold each other up a bit more. And I think that starts with, like, maybe some Black women can tell us, you know, what they might need, as well as listen to things that we might say we need.
So can I just respond to that briefly and then go to Chelsea? So last night, we actually had a conversation here it was a call to men, and we had brother here that some of you might know by the name of Tony Porter. And it was a conversation that was held. And I just want to say briefly, literally 5 men called me today. One was a pastor of a major Black church, and he said that he had never, ever thought about talking about the experiences and things that's been happening to the majority of women in this church. Never even thought to talk about sexual violence, never thought to talk about domestic violence, all the things that were happening to. I had another friend who runs a big fatherhood organization, disclose all the things that had been happening to him in his life. And so, to your point, Brother Kiese Laymon, and I really appreciate the question, the thing that came out in this conversation for the men that was in the room is we really, in the battle intervention field, we used to always say that men oftentimes won't ask women questions about their lives because we don't even want to hear it, because we can't handle it. I know, for example, I never wanted to know the types of stuff that happened to my mother, who was a crack addict. You know, and part of the thing that happened in that space last night was that there was a part of the education, and Principal Ty was kind enough to join us on our day 2 here. Brother Kiese was Black men and boys in support of Black women and girls education. And so we had an event at Columbus City Preparatory School for Girls. And we invited men to come there and talk about what were their roles and opportunities in supporting Black girls and Black women in education. And part of that conversation, Principal Ty, you correct me if I'm wrong, was simply learning about women's issues. We just never invited to actually read about Black women's literature, feminist literature, and things like that. So I think that you're 100% right. That becomes one of the particular ways, especially from a gender and violence perspective, where we might not have some of the same risk and protective factors that ends up plaguing us throughout life. So I apologize for just saying that, but this is precisely what we as a community here in Columbus have been trying to focus on this entire week, which is how can we actually partner, advocate, and move in a different direction along with Black women and Black girls. And with that being said, I'm super excited because there's another level of this that has to do with the role of thinking about young people in particular in terms of their needs, whether it be boys or girls. And I'm very, very excited to at this particular time, introduce a brilliant sister who's doing some work. And I think after you'll hear her, you'll see this interiority that you started off talking about, Laymon, and how important it is for young folks, for us as adults, to pay attention to early and often. So, Jasia, would you mind introducing yourself and talking a little bit about your work?
Sure. So my name is Chelsea Elliott. I'm the founder of SOMOCOM Lab, the Social Emotional Communication Lab. And excuse me, I support children's mental and emotional wellness. I grew up as a child who needed somebody to talk to, somebody to just listen, somebody to say, you know what, that is hard for you to deal with, and I'm sorry. And I didn't get that. And so, Mr. Laymon, I relate a lot to your story, not as a Black male, but from the perspective of you needed some support as a kid and you didn't get that. And so as you're talking about addiction, I see how the addiction manifested in your life in different ways. And like Mr. Larry said, you kind of went crazy, like with the exercise. Well, that's an addiction. Like that was a part of that. You know, you went way too far in one direction, it impacted your life. So I appreciate you sharing. And something that I wrote down that I was thinking about as you were speaking is that you're bringing humanity to Black men and boys. And too often y'all don't get that. You don't get that, and you deserve it so much, so much. Our kids are adultified way too early on. And we need to figure out where that comes from and why it's so pervasive in our community and with our community, and how we can break that. And so I'm really grateful for your book. I just got it on Libby, the free library app. So I'm going to listen to it like you're talking to me. I'm so excited to hear this story and to, have the same feelings that the other guys had felt when they listened to it. But as, you all were talking, I was just thinking about ways that we can support kids and we can support ourselves through this journey of life. Like there's so much, as you had said, that comes from our past and we don't even question it. It's just stuff that we do. I've heard from parents, I do parent coaching and parent education as well, because you can't work with kids without working with their adults. And a lot of times they're like, oh, I never really thought about that. I just said it. I thought it was just a part of parenting. And no, you're actually perpetuating things that you hated when you were younger. But it's something it's so natural. It's your default. And so we have to learn how to break those things. We have to be mentally healthy and deal with our stuff in order to break those cycles. We cannot continue this. I work with middle schoolers and preschoolers right now, and they are struggling. I asked a group of little girls to tell themselves that they were beautiful yesterday, and they all cried because they couldn't do it. They all cried. I was like, what is happening? They couldn't do it. So that's making me wonder who's in their village. Who are the strong Black men that are in their spaces? Where are the mothers that are in their spaces? Where are the adults that are showing them love, and how are they showing that to them? So that's something that we need to think about. Are we really giving them what they need right now? Or are we just doing something that we're going through the motion? We're in that default parent mode that we were raised with. And we don't have to do that anymore. Our kids deserve better. And I appreciate you using your story and the struggles and challenges that you went through to uplift others and to show the reality of it. Because you're right, too many people don't talk about sexual assault. They don't talk about the feelings that come from those things. They would rather have an addiction. They would rather beat their kids and yell and scream and shout and let it manifest in unhealthy ways than deal with it. Either way, you're dealing with it. You're just keeping it inside when you don't deal with it for real. But when you can actually deal with it and actually heal, I love that you use the word heavy to represent your weight and your life. You start to feel so much lighter. You feel so much lighter and you're so free when you start to deal with that stuff. But we have to start at childhood. We don't have to have our kids grow up in a world, grow up to learn how to take on the world. We don't have to beat them down in order for them to understand how to take on the beatings from other people. No, they need a safe space. They need a place that they can come to and cry without us allowing our triggers from not being allowed to cry in our childhood to impact them. They need a place to feel and to be angry, because the world will make you angry. They are dealing with racism. The middle schoolers talked about colorism. I'm like, what y'all talking about colorism in 7th grade? Really? They're dealing with it now. And we hated that growing up. We hate it now. We don't want to talk about it, but they need somebody to talk to. Our kids need somebody who will just listen. Somebody who will say, yep, that is hard. Yes, those tears are valid. Yes, your anger makes sense in this situation. They need somebody who will say that to them. I know you needed somebody like that, Mr. Laymon. We all do. We all do now, and the kids need it now. So I am very grateful for you writing this book. I am so excited to listen to it. I have ADHD, so it's hard for me to just listen to books or to read them. So I listen to them while I'm doing other stuff. I cannot wait to dive into this one. This is such a powerful conversation. I'm so grateful for you. So grateful for you and for your life. My husband and I share a therapist, which is amazing.
Wow.
Because he was the type that grew up real hard, got into fights over everything all the time. Oh my, kicked out everything, got into fights all the time. And he's like the cuddliest guy now, a girl dad, you know? So this type of thing is his thing. And he's been learning how to deal with his stuff so he's not passing it on to his daughters. And he is phenomenal, but he had to deal with his stuff. And so the woman asked, what can women do? For men, be there. When they're crying, be there. When they're mad, be there. They need somebody to be there. They need a partner. They need an advocate. So I don't know how much time I have, but that was what was on my heart.
Thank you.
That was on my heart.
Thank you. And especially thank you for what you said about default parenting. I think that default parenting, default partnering,
Yeah.
I mean, it's partially why we are where we are. So thank you for that.
It absolutely is. You are so right.
Thank you.
And she can go, and if we had more time, I'd let her break that down in terms of the default parenting, because her conception, and so Chelsea is for all the folks that's in this space, is one of she's a businesswoman, and her business is to make sure that kids end up getting, what in this language now is socio-emotional learning. But she's one of the few sisters on the planet who's really developed a methodology key to really empower parents and young folks to get at these levels of expression, emotionality, interiority that just hasn't been done. She just told me you was on Karen Hunter's show yesterday, that sort of thing, right? So folks are just now getting familiar with her work, but I'll make sure that everybody does that. And so to your point, this is powerful, and I really wanted to make sure that she was here because there's this other part of us. And I'll just share with you, and this has been said by a number of people who've read your book, that it changed the way in which we thought about parenting. For those of us who say we love our kids, right? Right? I'll just share this real briefly because I've been sharing it publicly, and then the brothers that's on this call know it. I was very guilty of telling my daughter there'll never be a brother who loves you as much as I love you, right? Because I prayed for her more than anybody else, worried about her more. And the brother Q, at some point, it dawned upon me. I said, with all my baggage, damn, I hope somebody else does, brother, love you better than I do, right? So to your point, that whole, right, all this sort of in the name of, goodness. And so the inability for us to actually have a process, and I'm going on other stuff, is really what this world, and of course, there's these layers of liberation, literacy, and all this other stuff that you just don't have time. So thank you. So I really just wanted to make sure Chelsea represents what this world and interior for young folks can look like and should look like. And want to honor her as much as want to honor you and your work, and that's one of you. I thank you. We're running out of time. I'm going to
give the young brother Chris. Is that you said, young brother Chris?
Yeah, there was one more question, Jewel.
Okay, go ahead. Y'all, what you thought?
Thank you very much. I've been a big fan of yours ever since reading your essay, You Are Second Person. And I do want to mention, for anybody who hasn't read Kiese's other books, they are also excellent. Long Division, and also How to Kill Yourself and Others Slowly in America. My question for you, you had talked a lot in your essay about just kind of the forces that array against you when you try to speak your voice. And I wanted to know if you could just speak a little as a writer and a communicator. How do you tell the truth in a world that's very resistant to Black truth?
Woo. Thank you for that. Again, we could be here all night off of that, but I think it's incumbent on us to change the metric. I think sometimes when we think about black boys, especially, we talk about anger, which is absolutely something we should talk about. But in my reading, and I read for a living now, I hadn't seen enough literature kind of talk about the role that humiliation plays in our lives, the role that, we often play in humiliating people, and the roles that we have played in being humiliated, which is tied into shame, which is tied into cycles of everything. And so, for me, fam, like I just always want to have liberation and liberatory practice as the end, right? Which means it's perpetual. But I don't think we can get there unless we really do the work of thinking about our relationships with humiliation, like the ways that we have humiliated people who love us, and the ways we have been humiliated by people who love us, and the ways all these institutions, I think, are like banking and sort of like built on Black humiliation. So I think we have to reckon with what it feels like not to just be hurt and not just to be angry, but to feel humiliated. But again, I think it goes both ways, right? I think that, like, we aren't lucky enough to be in this world and have power go one way. Power goes through us, and we are power at different times, which means we are the abused and the abuser. So for me, it's just like, as an author, I just want to track that. As a person, I want to never let go of the probability that I am immediately humiliating and being humiliated by some structure and some person. And I want to do everything I can in the world to not interpersonally humiliate, and I want to do everything in the world to, like, take my part of systemic humiliation off the neck of Black folk, trans people, queer people, in general. So I just think, for me, it's like, when I really started thinking about humiliation, I started to understand our liberation practice a little bit differently. So that's the quick answer I got. Thank you for taking seriously any of the other shit I wrote too. I appreciate you.
All right, thank you. Can we go to final remarks? We're a little bit past time already, if that's okay, with everybody's permission. So any panelists jump in. Everybody has a lot to say. Obviously, I've been getting texts from some of the panelists about so much you want to say. This is really just the beginning. And maybe I'll say a word or two. I said I wasn't going to say a lot. But yeah, any panelists, please just keep it brief. I know you'd have a lot to say, but everyone sort of chime in.
So I just wrote to
Okay.
Mr. Laymon, and I'll just read what I wrote because it's what I'm thinking. I am not looking for heavy 2, which we always do, look for the second version, and that is heavy again, where you rewrite and take out the lies you say you've learned to tell. Then I can read heavy again, which is fully my intention to read that book again.
Thank you.
Jewel,
Yes.
quickly. I have so much enjoyed this, and Jewel did not prepare me for it. He called me yesterday.
Let him know you're telling on him.
Let me finish. I know I don't have a lot of time. He called me yesterday, and of course, he always pumps me up with positives, and I agreed to do this. And this is not enough time to go deep enough as we need to go. Okay, so I want to get a couple things out. I've known June for 20 years. There was a time I was his counselor when he was struggling and I was trying to get through school. Several things have come up. To Key, I'm teaching slavery in the fall, and your book is going on my reading list at the end of the semester, some of it. Not because it's about slavery, it's about the consequences of the experiences that we've had in this country, okay? I love to talk to you one-on-one because so much of what you say about family is my family. So talking about kids, I teach a course on color and passing. And what I've had to do, fortunately, I married a clinical psychologist and didn't know I would need him, not as a husband, but as a therapist, because my kids dropping in tears in my class over colorism. And I'm not just talking about African Americans. I had an African student that I worried about over colorism. We've got to talk about that in honest ways and what it has done to our psyche. Humiliation. I've taught at a Black college. I taught at Spelman College. I've gone to white schools. And I'm going to share just one brief experience that Kiese, I think, put on the table about humiliation. I worked hard to get here. And Jewel can tell you all about it, okay? And I was asked to lecture in a class. Jewel talked a lot about me talking about lit. I was asked to come to a white class at a white Christian college, and I'm a Christian, to talk about Alice Walker's The Color Purple. When I finished, because I am smart, and that's not bragging. I paid the price to be smart. I'm damn smart, okay? I don't need notes to talk. And I took 20 minutes and gave a lecture on Black culture because all these white students wanted to know it. The man who invited me brought me there because they were asking questions. So I gave them in 20 minutes what I had. Their hands went up and asked me to come back to class. Asked the professor, could I come back? They had more questions. Later, I went to lunch and I got in line with the same professor, white, from an Ivy League school. And he started talking to me, and in the middle of the conversation, I was wearing a colorful purple outfit or something. He said, no, Tiffany, could Alice have been, I was reading the Bible and I reading Revelations, and I reading about the whore of Babylon, and she was dressed in a lot of colors. And he then looked at me, he said, you're dressed like the whore of Babylon today. I was standing in an all-white room, a Black woman, and I was raised by a Mississippi mama, and I almost went there, okay? But I knew that if I had come from that space, I probably would have lost my job, okay? I've told that story several times because it's still with me, and that was almost 30 years ago. I'm the oldest person in this discussion, okay? I'm 70 years old, 77, excuse me, 3 years from 80, okay? I could go on for another session about these kinds of experiences. I appreciate your book, Key, and I'm gonna put part of the reading on my list. I only got to check, Jewel will tell you, I'm a quick reader, I read a lot. So I read as much as I could. And I rarely bring to my class on slavery the aftermath of slavery. And I'm going to take your book and so you'll get some royalties on that. Okay. I think this conversation must continue. It needs to be longer. It needs to be directed. And by that, I mean the humiliations. I could stay all night with the humiliations that follow you when you have something to do and you can do it well. I'm damn smart, okay? And that's not a bragging. I gave up children. I adore children. I have none. I gave up everything. I got married only 10 years ago and I married a psychologist. One that Jewel talks to all the time, okay? A clinical psychologist. Because we have not, I love what you're doing because we are beginning in this manner to treat our psychosis of living in America. And I could give a damn, excuse me, anybody if I offend you, what these politicians like that want fool in Florida is saying. We need to bring the history to all of our children. The Black ones, the white ones, the in-between ones, the light-skinned, the dark-skinned, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll end with this. I had a young girl I worry about. She was African. She was living in this country. She was in classes and she was hurting so badly. And I've had many, but she sticks out in my mind. And she gave me a lot of trouble. And I would talk to the other Black girls about it. And I tried to get her to begin to get a critical mind on, somebody mentioned color. This is for the kids that are growing up, okay? I'm light-skinned. I've got green eyes, okay? And she had a problem with that. And I kept trying to explain. My grandfather was near white. He was the product of rape, okay? My other grandfather was near white. He was the product of rape. And that's what we have got to be able to teach our students about, and not to be hung up on what's in the media and begin to latch on to these. So much has come up tonight that I can't get it all out. The humiliation, the anger, the doubt, the self-doubt that I have had to counsel so many kids. I don't have a degree in psychology, but I've had to counsel so many young women and men who had self-doubt. And I've lost many along the way, who dropped out of school, who didn't come back, okay? I was sitting here and Jewel knows me well, and he's asked in a note, "Are you okay?" And I just said, "I need to say something." Key, I weighed 280 pounds until 3 months ago.
What?
Yes, 280 pounds. I am also a cancer survivor. My husband studies health disparities.
Yeah.
Cancer taking Black women out of here, as well as men, right and left. I had cancer. My sister had cancer. Her daughter had cancer. And now her granddaughter, who's 21, has cancer, has breast cancer. Jewel, I didn't tell you this last night.
I know.
Okay. You know.
I know.
Okay. Mine has come back. Okay. And this is what Black people go through. Okay. This is what the system of our history has produced. So when I look at your book, and as much as I didn't get it all read, but Jill knows I read a lot, okay, and I read fast. Okay. Thank you for this book. And if you write another one, whoever said it, it needs to be heavy too. Okay. Because it is heavy. I didn't expect to get as emotional as I'm feeling right now, because Jewel brought me in, like he always does, as a counselor. But faith, and there's a lot wrong with the church. I'm from a long line of Baptist preachers. Okay? And I go to an African Methodist Episcopal church. It's very historical now. But if it hadn't been for my ability to pray to something, I wouldn't have survived. I would not be sitting here at my age trying to write another book. I wrote a book on Zora Neale Hurston, if you're interested. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Another wonderful woman. I think your book is priceless because it's honest. It is deeply thought, and I haven't read it all. Deeply thought, and it is courageous because it takes courage to put yourself on blast, if you will. Put yourself out there and say, this is who I am. This is how I hurt. This is what I have done wrong. This is what I got right, okay? And more Black people need to do that. I didn't get everything I wanted in life. I would love to have had children. And I'm glad to see men, Black men, taking up the question of what happens to women, okay? I paid a price for how Mom raised me. And that's not a criticism. Her girls are strong. I have a sister, but I lost my brother. Okay. We cry in secret. Okay. We hurt in secret because in order to survive what we have had to survive, we had to find ways for the world not to know the scars that we carry. And that's men and women. So this conversation has to continue. We have to have more conversations like this. Men have to be willing and have the courage to talk about their feelings, and women have to have the courage to talk about theirs as well, because we're not innocent in this struggle. Okay. I'm sorry if I offended anyone, but I've been sitting here listening, thinking about 60 years. 60 years. I started college at 17. And I'm sorry, Jewel, I didn't mean to get up emotional, but I am so proud of all of you for doing this. Key, your book is wonderful. And I didn't even read it all. But, excuse me, that's my sister, she gonna kill me. I just wanted to say, hold on.
Where's Hector? Where's Hector at? Go get Hector. So
Hector, come here. Jewel wants you to come in here. I'm sorry, I didn't expect to get this emotional.
Please don't apologize.
Yeah, Mrs. Patterson, think about that. Don't apologize for being emotional. That's what we're doing. That's why we're here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can I just say two things? My partner, who was another reason I made it to this point. She wrote a book about Hurston too, and she has written about your work.
Who's your partner?
I'm not going to say that on this call right now, but I'll hit you. I'll hit you up. But it's just another young Black woman professor who has who found self in Hurston and found more about Hurston and your work. So I want to talk about that, but also just want to say, I don't know what it's like to have elders speak to the experience of humiliation like you just did. I don't know what that's like. I don't know what that's like. I come from sturdy, beautiful, strong people who believe you stay strong by not talking about humiliation. So I just want to say, I mean more than this, but I just want to say thank you for loving us enough to testify about your wonder and the wonder of your surviving that humiliation. I hope you know that meant I ain't never seen that before, fam. I've never seen that, which is one of the reasons I wrote that book. So thank you.
Thank you. And here's Jewel, here's Hector.
Hector, I just wanted you to get Tiffany because she make me go off camera and all that stuff. I'm getting emotional. So we need to get back on track and then we'll circle back. But you know I love you. You know I adore you. You know I need you. So let's get back on track. All right. So Hector, take her away so she don't make me cry on camera.
She's gonna make us all cry on camera, Jewel. All of them.
Let me end by saying this, and I'll let Jewel take you out. Thank you for including me in this. Thank you for the work you're trying to do, and you can always call on me for this kind of assistance. When I know you know I wasn't bragging about being smart. I was talking about the price I paid for that. I paid a heavy price, and I hope that I counsel my kids. If we can help them, they won't have to pay this price with the right teachers and the right counseling and the right books. And this book, Key, is one of those books. Thank you so much for that, for your hard work. And I'm going to stop there.
Okay. All right. We're well past time, and I don't even want to give directions. So Kev, Chelsea, Hugh, Ty, anybody want to, just sort of roll us up, and then Key, I'll just let you close this out. Anybody feel like they just want to say something, or we just want Key to close this out?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate one, just share that I might speak for all the panelists. I know I speak for myself, to express my deep gratitude to even be a part and included in this conversation. But I think it's appropriate to just allow Key, she so graciously shared, your voice with us all, your part of your vision, your life, that vulnerability we appreciate. And I think that, bring us home. Any final thoughts? I think that'd be appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, my final thoughts are just painted in gratitude, and a thankfulness to be surrounded by people who understand that we have to get better at loving the people and places we say we love if we gonna make it through this thing. And that book is about survival, but it's also about sort of trying to ritualize a new way to be better at loving the people we say we love. And this tonight is a manifestation of something I've been, trying to see and experience. So I just want to say thank you, and I feel like I got to say other words, but thank you deeply for loving us, Jewel, and thank y'all for caring enough to love us in the ways that you do. And I just hope that we can all allow Tiffany's model tonight to serve us. Like we, and Tiffany, I mean, Ms. Patterson, Dr. Patterson, I hope you don't ever say again, you're not trying to brag because you smart shit. Brag, you 77 shit. Let me make it to 77. I'm gonna be a bragging motherfucker. Like, listen. So please, thank you for bragging, and also thank you for testifying about the experience of humiliation and activating and showing us how we can make it through whole. And if we do, we have the responsibility to share that experience with other people who love us, or what the fuck we making it for. So thank y'all.
Thank you for including me. Thank you. Jewel?
All right. Jill, Jill, you want to wrap up? We're gonna close out. Going once, going twice.
Yeah, so the rest of the week, just let people know this was a part of Black Girl Dad Week. Friday was Black Healing and Reconciliation. Tomorrow is family fun. We're having a dance at COSI, and we're ending it off Sunday, which is Black Love and Black Date Night. Love everyone to go to blackgirldadweek.com to see what we're trying to do here. I thank you, folks that's on this panel. Many of you have supported me.
I think we lost him. Jill, we lost you.
No, Tiffany got me feeling sometimes.
He's there.
He's in his feelings right now. That's okay.
That's
okay.
It's all right. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and help us to close things out. Clearly, as we've seen, y'all, an extremely, extremely powerful conversation, powerful night, a powerful moment, right? And we all got to be a part of it. So I said it earlier, I want to thank Jewel, right, for being the leader he is and pulling us all together. We can see the impact of the work he's doing. He can see the impact of the work he's doing right in front of him right now. So Jewel, we thank you, we appreciate you. Key, thank you so much. We honor and we appreciate you, the work you've done. And Jewel, JP said it earlier, transformational, right? Your book and what you're doing, not just in this book, but collectively, is transformational. And thank you so much. We'll be praying for you to keep doing great work like this and having an impact, not just on us, but in the entire world. All right. And with that being said, y'all, I want to thank everybody for joining us, everybody for hanging out as long as you did. Remember, the links are available in the chat. You can copy the Facebook link or the YouTube link. You can share this immediately with your audience. You can share directly right now through Facebook if you want to copy that link and drop it in a text message and send it to your friends and your family because they need this. Please do so immediately and get the word out. With that being said, I thank you all for joining our platform tonight. Remember, check us out at columbusblack.com. And don't forget to download the Mile app. You can go to mile.com to learn more. We appreciate you all supporting a Black platform like this to get the word out, get the message out. And thank you all. Have a great night. We see you all at the Black Father-Daughter Dance tomorrow at COSI. Take care, everybody. Thank you.